Alright, very warm welcome back everyone. Today we want to talk about equalizing. Another plugin basically that you can use in order to make your sound a little bit richer and maybe also get rid of all these unwanted frequencies. So equalizing is basically a frequency modulation or manipulation tool, and Cubase, especially the small versions, come with I think at least two different equalizing tools. So the first one you have in your channel settings. If you're navigating to this E here, you have the first equalizer. You can also change this to knobs if you want to. And the second option you have is using the Studio EQ, which has been modified again with another GUI. I think as of Cubase 11 or 10.5 or something. And I'm going to use this one, this Studio EQ, in this situation. I've come up with a loop again. In this case, you can see techno chord loop F minor. If we're playing this back, we have something like this going on. And the first thing I want to do in this equalizing tool is basically enable the spectrum. So I can see what frequencies are going on here and what may be something that I don't want in this chord loop. The first thing we see is that we basically have nothing in the low end going on, and we have some very, let's say, mid to high frequencies going on here. So I should probably, especially since we have nothing going on in the low end, I want to cut some of this low end out. So the first thing I want to do is basically choose the cut filter here. So you have 4 bands, you have again your auto makeup gain, and you have these 4 bands where band 1 and 4 can be switched between parametric shelves and cut and peak filters, and band 2 and 3 are only peak filters in this case. So I want to use a cut which basically takes off all of this low end, and I believe this should be a cut with 12 decibels per octave. So this means if I'm going down 1 octave, the sound, or the loudness of the sound has reduced by 12 decibels. There are also other filters, especially if you use the frequency equalizer, which is available in the Cubase Pro version. You can even get up to 96 decibels per octave. So in this case, let's just put a cut here, listen again, and we see that we have basically the frequencies are below 200 Hertz are the ones that are annoying me a little bit. So I'm not going for 200 Hertz, but maybe for 150 Hertz. So cutting all of these low frequencies out. Remember, if you have like 4 bands, you usually have frequencies associated with them. So you basically, let's say 200 Hertz, you have the low frequencies, then to, let's say, around 1 to 2 kilohertz, you have the low mids. This is not completely accurate. Then 2 to, let's say, 5, maybe 7.5 kilohertz would be the high mids, so the high middle frequencies, and then you have the high frequencies like 5 or 7.5 kilohertz and above. So this would usually be something you could group these frequencies. Of course, if you have more bands, you can group your frequencies even more and make some nice adjustments, but in this case we have to stick to these four bands. So the second thing I see is that we have some prominent frequencies around our 1K and 2K range, and this is actually quite interesting and quite nice for us, because we can then use another filter here. In this case, we want to use the band 2 with a peak filter to strengthen some of these frequencies. Especially the 1 kilohertz range gives up for some nice warm character to your music. So if you just listen closely, you can probably already hear this. I know that this is going to work well for 1 kilohertz, but I don't know if this is going to work well with this kind of loop. So let's just hear for ourselves. In this case, it's not that good, or I don't think that it is a good idea to do this, because there are some annoying higher frequencies going on here. I don't want them. I'm not going to strengthen this that much, but maybe just a little bit, and then go ahead and just do some adjustments with not band 3 but band 4, because I have the shelf filter here, and I can just lower these frequencies in the high end here a little bit as well. I'm not sure if this equalizing setting works well. So you always have to find out if this works well in your mix as well. So in this case, it might give some more character to this sound. You can always check with the bypassing option here. But equalizing, again, equalizing is a tool that is, you often have to do this by ear. It's great that you have this spectrum oscillator here, and which shows you where the frequencies are. But equalizing, there is no general rule which settings work well. There are some frequencies that have some sort of character. So in this case, 1 kilohertz would be for the warmth. Then you have like 200, 300, 400 hertz for the low mids, which is usually a little bit muddy. So it might make sense to lower those a bit, but in general there is no rule for equalizing. One option you have here in this particular equalizer is this Q, and you will often find this Q also in other equalizers, and the Q factor basically tells you how narrow your band should be and how high your peaking basically is. If you have a low Q, your band will be very broad. If you have a high Q, your band will be very narrow. And you also have this tiny little invert gain option here, where you can basically just switch between plus and minus decibels that you have here. This is usually useful if you are like finding out or want to find out if there are some nasty frequencies you have. You'll usually do a sweep, so you start with the very low frequencies. You should usually also disable these bands, and then you'll play back the sound, and then you'll find that there are some frequencies that are really nasty. I think this here stuck out for me, so I'm just going here, going for the invert gain, maybe raising the Q a bit to get rid of this frequency, maybe not that much, and then we can just easily narrow down which frequencies are a little bit more complicated to deal with. So these are basically the options you have. You have the frequency, you have the Q, which allows you to change the size of your band, and then you have the gain option, which allows you to reduce by the set amount in the gain option.